So somehow after the last episode, the wedding of Kite Man and Poison Ivy, or Poison Kitey, is still on. What could go wrong? Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to an all-new Crossin Streams. As always, I'm your host, the real Gino Reynolds, and today we're going to be taking a look at episode 13, the finale of the Harley Quinn series on the DC Universe streaming service. This time, episode 13, the Runaway Bridesmaid. When we last left off, Dr. Psycho had revealed to Kite Man that Harley and Ivy had a fling at the mascara, but somehow the wedding is still on. We'll get to that in a bit. We start the episode with the heroes, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and some heroes we've never heard of, getting keys to the city of Gotham. And Gordon is excited because it's something he's always wanted. Heck, he even has a frame in the police station waiting for the key to the city, and he thinks he's finally going to get it. There's one more key left, and the mayor gives it to himself, which of course makes Gordon mad. And Gordon's story is basically, as he's transporting Two-Face back to Arkham, Two-Face becomes the real villain because he convinces Gordon that, you need to do something really heroic if you want that key to the city. He tries to convince him to run for mayor first, but Gordon's like, they would never vote for me. And he goes, not unless you do something really heroic. So he gives him the information that Kite Man and Poison Ivy's wedding's still on. There's going to be tons of villains there. You ought to just make a big old bust, and everyone will love you. And he actually talks Gordon into this. We go to Kite Man and Ivy, and Ivy's talking to him and saying they're flying along on his kite, and she's saying, I'm sorry this happened. It'll never happen again. And he goes, if you don't want to marry me, just say so. And she's like, no, I do want to marry you. And she gives him a big surprise. She goes, fly over here. And they go to the corn factory that he wants his dream wedding at. The one that his arch nemesis, Condiment King, got from under him in an earlier episode. It comes to find out that because she loves him so much, and I'm kind of saying that in a sarcastic way because we'll get to that, he's like, what about Condiment King? How is this happening? Condiment King had the venue, and sure enough, comes to find out, even though she kind of lies to him and says Condiment King's on a permanent vacation, we don't know if he's going to come back. We see kind of a flashback to Ivy approaching Condiment King, and he's like, if you want an invite to my wedding, it's not happening. Pan over to Frank, who eats Condiment King and his fiancée. So the venue's open now. So Kite Man's response is pretty funny because he's like, you took on one of the most dangerous supervillains ever to, get this venue for me. And of course, Ivy's just like, well, I wouldn't say that, but yes. So the wedding's on. Harley has taken herself to Arkham to get her head straight. But while she's at Arkham, Two-Face comes into play again and tells her, hey, Gordon's going to mess up the wedding. First he's like, break me out of here. I'll tell you, what's going on. And she breaks him out and tells him that Gordon's going to mess up the wedding. And of course she is like, I can't let that happen. So Harley goes to the wedding, and she tries to she has lots of people like the other bridesmaids and everything And she even runs into Kite Man, who really doesn't want her there, and you can tell he is not happy to see her. But she's trying to find Gordon. She's not telling anyone yet that everything's messed up, but she's trying to find Gordon so she can stop him, so he can't mess up the wedding. Gordon, by the way, they've already infiltrated the wedding. They've taken the place of all the staff. Gordon has taken place of the priest, and they've immobilized Frank, who, in the end, it's comedic, but he's locked away in the flower truck. But let's just say it ends up pretty funny because near the end of the episode, we'll just say that if the flower vans are rocking, don't come a knocking. But anyway, Harley's trying to find Gordon. She ends up punching out the owner of the corn factory. That's when Ivy sees her and sees that the photographer has fainted, sees that she's knocked out the owner of the corn factory, and is like, "You're messing up my wedding." She tries to tell Harley tries to tell Ivy that they're messing up your wedding. Gordon's going to do this. Two-Face told me, and Ivy's response is pretty good because she says, "A literal two-faced person told you this," and she doesn't believe her. She goes, "Look, Kite Man doesn't even want you here, and you're going to ruin things. I don't want you here either." She wants her there, but you can tell that she's like, "I'm doing this for Kite Man. I don't want you here." She doesn't say it, but that's where it comes from. You really do know she wants her there. But anyway, so she tells Harley to leave, and Harley does. As Harley's leaving, she goes by her seat at the bridesmaids table and picks up a flower and walks out. We also find out a little bit of side story. There's no real Dr. Psycho in this episode. We see him once in Arkham. As important as he was this whole season, he really didn't do anything. He's in Arkham, and we see him. We don't even hear him. But King Shark and Clayface, they are at the wedding. Clayface is going to sing during the wedding, and it comes to find out that he's not really doing it for Kite Man and Ivy. He's doing it because Catwoman's date to the wedding is Tim Burton. And he wants to impress Tim Burton, and this might be his big moment, his time to shine. And he does get that time to shine in front of Burton later. He sings in front of him. A tear comes to Burton's eye, but then Catwoman takes the guy away, and I don't remember what she calls him, but it's not Tim Burton. I think his name's like Chad. She's like, "Come on, Chad, this is creeping me out," and they leave. Even though you thought, "Oh, he's impressing Tim Burton." Oh, wait, it's not Tim Burton. I think it would have been funny. The character doesn't talk, but I thought it would have been funny if the character did talk, and it was Tim Burton talking, but the character wasn't Tim Burton. He was this Chad or whatever his name was. As Harley is walking out, she sniffs the flower and figures out that the flowers are plastic, which of course would make Ivy's powers useless. So she runs back in. She again starts looking for Gordon. One of the bridesmaids, I can't remember her name. I believe it's Cheryl. It's the one of them that was at the bachelorette party in Themyscira. She confronts Harley. It's like, "What are you doing? You're going to ruin this wedding. This is the last chance I'm going to get to be a bridesmaid." And Harley's like, "No, it's going to happen." But Cheryl and Harley get into a fight. And as Harley gets knocked to the ground, she sees that one of the caterers is in the wedding area. And she's like, "Why is the caterer here?" And it comes to find out it's, of course, one of the cops, and Harley discovers this. And this is when the reporters show up, this is when Gordon makes his play. There's knockout gas inside all the plants. Of course, they have gas masks. All the guests are starting to knock out. You have, all sorts of villains in there. Bane's in there. He doesn't really get any moments in this. You've got Victor Zsasz. You've got Killer Croc. There's just many of villains in there. Black Manta's in there. And so chaos ensues. Harley, of course, now Gordon has revealed himself. So Harley attacks Gordon. After Ivy is starting to be knocked out by the gas, she tries to use the plants as like, I'm going to get us out of here. So one thing I did forget to mention was, and maybe I'll talk more about this later. During the vows between Kite Man and Ivy, you start to see that maybe they didn't have a lot of discussions about what their life would be like as a married couple. I'll get back to that in a bit. I just wanted to make sure I got that in there. But Harley's attacking Gordon. Somehow in his coat he has a rocket launcher. So Harley uses the rocket launcher to bust a hole in the ceiling, and the gas goes out of the hole in the ceiling, which of course the gas is leaving, so the villains are starting to wake up, and Gordon's like, everybody retreat, even though there's still tons of cops attacking this corn factory. Harley gets Kite Man and Ivy out of there, and as they're hunkered behind some hay, Harley says, look, I became a minister online, I can marry you. Of course, Kite Man's upset because his dream venue's burning to the ground, and Ivy's like, well, look, Harley can marry us. I know it's not in this place, but it's here. And Harley says, are we going to do this? Ivy says yes. And Kite Man says, hell no. Kite Man says, and she's like, look, I do want to marry you. And he goes, or she's like, do you want to marry me? And he goes, of course I do, but you don't want to marry me. He goes, I could see it in your eyes during the vows that I'm not the one for you. And he says, you're right. I deserve the best. It was something she said to him earlier. You deserve the best. He goes, you're right. I do deserve the best, and I'm leaving. So he threw some massive shade at Ivy, and somewhat rightfully so. She did cheat on him. That being said, they probably needed to be more honest to each other before they got married, because during the vows, he was saying, he was basically, very detailed, this is what our life's going to be. We're going to be in a quaint ranch-style house, staying at home, watching, binging TV, running around with our 4 children. He had all these details, and she looked worried, of course. So anyway, Kite Man leaves, and Harley and Ivy are like, we got to get out of here. So they get in a car, and they start to drive off, and they have a discussion about being, changing as a person. And Ivy's like, I should have, I'm tired of everybody, depending on me. She goes, I have feelings, and here's my feelings. She just lays out, how she knew in the end it wasn't right. And she also starts to compliment Harley, saying, because Harley's like, Kite Man will come around, and she's like, well, he shouldn't have to, but people can change. She goes, Ivy says, you've changed, Harley. She goes, so you're not saying you're saying I'm not chaotic and all this anymore? She's like, well, no, you are, but I've also seen you change as a person. You're becoming this person I want you to become, or wanted you to grow into, to become the person you always should have been, instead of, like the Joker's plaything and all that, right? And that's when Harley tells her they're driving. Of course, by the way, they're driving high-speed pursuit away from the police at the moment. Harley tells Ivy, I love you. Ivy says, I love you too. They are getting ready to kiss, but then, of course, chaos behind them. They start to drive off again and bust through some buildings and everything. But then they have a kiss as they're driving off. And it makes you wonder if this is how they're going to end the series for about 2 seconds. because the screen goes black, it says the end, then of course question mark. So maybe they just don't know if they're going to make more seasons. Maybe they're just trying to say, ha ha ha, there's more to the story. So I'm not really sure where they're going to go from here. If they make more, are we going to have Kite Man anymore? Or is he just going to stay gone? I don't want to see Kite Man become the villain. He wasn't the bad guy here. He was the one that was cheated on. Granted, again, his relationship with Ivy wasn't as solid as we thought because we didn't have all the details. Apparently, they never discussed their life after getting married. And then with... I do want to see where they go with Ivy and Harley, if they're going to continue. I've heard no confirmation if there's going to be a season 3 or anything. But I do want to see where that story is going to go. I know a lot of people are going to be happy they're together, and honestly, I think the way they did it, it wasn't exactly the way I thought it was going to happen. Kite Man was a little more angry and spiteful than I thought he would be. I thought he was going to be more understanding. But that being said, he's also a character that's had his heart broken, who basically had to tell himself, it's because he even says things like, I never thought I could do better, or I could never do better, and all this. And he goes, but you're right, I do deserve better, and throws shade at her. And again, she kind of deserved a little bit of that. That being said, her and him weren't meant to be. Harley and Ivy were meant to be. So, those that are supposed to be together are together right now. But you had to break the heart of another one. But I don't want to see them bring him back as a villain or anything. I want to see them bring him back. I'd still want to see him come back and become part of the crew. So I'm just really curious if they're going to do this. That they threw up the question mark. I think they plan on doing this. I think that as much stuff that's on the DC Universe streaming service that doesn't work, this show is definitely one of the things that has worked. I know a lot of people like the Doom Patrol. I haven't watched it. I've heard it's decent. I didn't like Titans, as many of you know. The Young Justice coming back was really good. And of course, the Harley Quinn series of the stuff I've watched is the best thing they've got. Whether they bring it back to the DC Universe streaming service, whether they go to HBO Max, whatever. I want to see them make more of this because it's the best thing they got going. Again, not everything happened the way I thought it was going to happen, but that's okay. I do like the way this series or this season finale turned out. I liked that they did get Harley and Ivy together, and even though again the whole Kite Man situation didn't happen the way I thought it was going to, it happened in a very reasonable and somewhat realistic way. It's like, look, I know, I can see it in your eyes, you don't want to be with me, I'm out, right? So it worked, and he's hurt and a little angry, so who knows where they're going to go with that. But I do really like the way that the season ended. I'm a little disappointed that Dr. Psycho wasn't really involved. I was a little surprised the Joker wasn't involved in some way, shape, or form. I know he's got... I thought it would have been funny, and maybe I just didn't see it. But I thought it would have been funny, and I don't think he was there because I think they would have had him do something. It would have been funny if him and his girlfriend showed up to the wedding. Just at the wedding, not do anything, just show up at the wedding like a normal couple would show up to a wedding. So there was a few things I thought they would have addressed. Of course, they need more seasons because Darkseid is supposed to come back sometime, and they have to deal with that. We have to deal with Kite Man. Who knows if Dr. Psycho is going to make another play? I mean, there's just so many things that have been left unresolved, even though a big thing has been resolved now that Harley and Ivy are together. And that's one of the big ones as well. And if they do end it here, you could say it ended on a decent note. That being said, there's too many open storylines that you need more seasons to resolve them. But yeah, it was a pretty good season finale. That's going to be all for this edition of Crossin Streams. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the Real Gino YouTube channel. Like this video. You have anything to say about episode 13 of season 2 of the Harley Quinn series on the DC Universe streaming service entitled The Runaway Bridesmaid, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Till next time, I am your host, the Real Gino, Gino Reynolds. See you later, puddins. Hopefully for more episodes.